going to begin. I really enjoyed the movie. I'm going to begin by asking, really, just what it was that initially attracted you to this character and to this project.
Well, for me, it was, I mean, truly, it was Luke Baines and Nick Simon, who have been two dear, dear friends of mine for years. And they called me up about March, April of last year and said, hey, we're sick of sitting in our houses. We wrote a movie, and you're doing it. So basically, I didn't have much of a choice, given that, Luke is like my brother. But that being said, it was still such a pleasure. And I think at that point, we were all so starved, not only for some kind of social interaction, but also some sort of creative productivity, that it allowed the perfect opportunity for us to try and experiment and see what we could do, even in the most, constrictive of circumstances.
I was interviewing a director, a British director, about a week ago, and he said that filmmaking is like a muscle, and he kind of felt like he had to make something in lockdown because he was worried about the idea of, I don't know, not going stale, but he just felt it's something you need to feed. It's like a career that you can't going 2 or 3 years without it could sort of like, you could lose your stride. Did you get that sense as well? Sort of when the kind of world changed a year ago, did you feel this kind of need to keep being creative?
Well, I'm a huge workaholic, so I would concur with that wholeheartedly. I mean, for so many of us in this industry, we're lucky enough to do what we love for a living, and part of our work kind of feeds our soul in a very real way, and that's something that I've very much come to terms with in the last year, in that, I need some kind of creativity, some kind of output, some kind of, like your friend was saying, working that muscle in a way that keeps you from becoming stagnant. And that's exactly what this film provided, and in the best of ways.
When you got the screenplay, did it take you to realize that this was actually the name of the film and not just kind of, because I saw it and I was like, oh, they still haven't titled that movie yet, and I was like, oh yeah.
No, it was funny because I remember that was one of my first questions to Luke and Nick, going, okay, but what are you going to title this thing? What are your ideas? And at the time, none of us were still sure, but it just sort of happened that way. We always had the idea that we might just leave it as Untitled Horror Movie because, it's a very meta film in and of itself, and a bit of a industry satire in a way. And I think it's very fitting, especially given, the year, and given the fact that the movie deals with all of these people in a very uncertain period in their lives. And even though we don't mention the pandemic, it's almost an allegory for that in a way, given that you have these 6 actors that are kind of in limbo, and all of us have been in limbo for so long. And, the ways in which they respond to it are very different.
I was wondering about, because obviously you're all shooting kind of independently of one another. Were you kind of on video calls together to help people's performances, reactions, a bit like a kind of script read, or were you just saying lines to yourself effectively?
No, we were all shooting simultaneously. And the only thing that I was on my own for was kind of the opening of the movie, or the little movie and movie bits that we do. We shot those separately. But all of the group scenes and all of the FaceTime calls, through the magic of earpieces and headphones, we were all on Zoom at the same time. But the shooting process was very quick, and it allowed us a lot of freedom because we were all shooting our own footage and recording our own sound. So everything was clean and everything was completely isolated and separate. So when it came to the editing process, it allowed them all the freedom in the world. And it basically was akin to shooting with 6 cameras on set at any time. So we had a lot of freedom and ability to just kind of play and find what the movie would be. But you're right. I mean, so much of the film relies on the chemistry of the cast and sort of the banter and the spontaneity that happens therein. And we still somehow were able to find that through Zoom.
Well, yeah, because I was going to say, I mean, so much of filmmaking and what makes the kind of filmmaking so special is that kind of camaraderie, isn't it? That people, the kind of relationships formed on set between cast and crew. So yeah, that must have been quite strange to kind of make this whole project, but losing that sort of element. I mean, it didn't come across like you said. I mean, the chemistry was there to be seen, but it must have been a shame not to be able to kind of share it in more of a close way.
It really was. And that's something I think a lot of us have talked about. Even though we did have such a great time together virtually, it is something that we all collectively miss. And I know I'm one that I I love getting to build that family and learning from everyone on set, be it other actors or technicians or crew members or hair and makeup or whatever it is. I'm always the one to ask questions and try and learn. And I'm actually really thankful. I've been very lucky over the last several years to have worked with some really incredible crews that have taught me a lot. Now, granted, there's a huge difference between understanding and observing something as opposed to doing it yourself practically, which I learned very quickly during this film, given that we were responsible for the lighting and the sound and the set deck and the hair and makeup and the stunts and everything on this production.
Yeah, you must have learned so many new skills from a technical point of view doing this.
Definitely. And all of the thanks and praise on that front goes to Kevin Duggan, our director of photography, who ever so kindly and patiently taught 6 actors how to do all of those things and walked us through every single shot and sort of gave us a rudimentary skill set that we could, by the end of the film, we had ideas of our own and we were able to, now we're all monsters when it comes to self-tapes and we're lighting things and setting up rigs in our houses and, it makes life fun.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm talking about sort of learning skills. There's obviously this scene with the characters holding a sword, and they sort of figured that she sort of learned how to use it on a set, but not necessarily to be used in real life. But is there a kind of element of truth in that skills picked up in films can set you in good stead in the real world? I mean, the sort of things that people have to learn for parts they play. I always just figured that, you're only ever learning kind of life skills. So do you feel in some ways that from your job you've actually kind of picked up a few things that could come in handy in the real world?
Absolutely. That's something and in fact, for folks that have watched all of our various projects beforehand, there's a lot of little inside jokes of that nature. For example, the fact that Chrissy has a bunch of fake swords in her house. All but one of those were actually mine because I've been lucky enough to have trained with some really incredible stunt coordinators. And, I now box in my life for fitness and for other things. And I've picked up a lot of those skills, given that I used to train with our Shadowhunter stunt coordinators like 5 times a week. And, by, pretty shortly into the show, I was doing most of my own fighting and stunts and learning from my stunt double, learning from the coordinators, learning from everyone and taking those skills through Arrow and through into the future. And that's something that I love about what I do. I get to learn so many different things and I get to be that chameleon and take little bits and pieces of things that I learn on both sides of the camera with me. But yes, that is definitely, put me in a dark alley and I'm not sure if it's choreographed, I got you. But aside from that, I really don't know. I'm lucky to say I have not put my fight skills to the test in a real life situation as yet.
But also the characters have to kind of learn to cope with these things emotionally as well. So I guess if there's ever kind of a demonic haunting in your house, you've already thought about how you might combat it emotionally, which I guess is a good head start over me anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm a bit of a true crime supernatural fan anyway. I listen to far too many podcasts and things of that nature. I've been a theater kid for far too long. I've heard all the ghost stories. But I will say I have a healthy respect for the supernatural and the demonic. And I'm going to let it stay in its lane and I'll stay in my lane and all the respect. But, normally when you do things like that on a set, it's not your house and you can leave it there and go home. This one, I walk down the hall and go to bed and I'm sitting there going, I've been swinging a pendulum around all day, saying these incantations, doing all of this. And I'm going, I mean, how much of a found footage docu horror comedy is this going to turn into? Am I going to release a demon in my own life? Is this actually going to happen? There were all these noises in my house happening. And I called Luke at one point and I said, listen, if I die, if I actually unleashed a demon, you're going to get haunted because this is all on you.
Was it quite, talking about shooting in your own house, was it almost quite hard to separate yourself from the character? Because I guess when you're in your house, in your clothes, I mean, I guess you might sort of lose, it must be hard to, that line between yourself and the role is blurred, although in some ways that could actually help the performance, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I had a lot of fun with Chrissy because she's very different than who I am. And I was lucky that Luke wrote it that way because it allowed me to do things that I'm not allowed to do very often. I get to lean really heavily into comedy and play a very different kind of character. And I tried to think about that too in things in my house. I rearranged some furniture and redecorated a little bit to go, how do I make this Chrissy's space? And how do I kind of go into that fully. And it worked out really well. I did, though, leave my house set up as not my house for about a week and a half while we were shooting. That was odd to go, wait, where did I put my, oh no, it's in this room now because of all of this. But it was a lot of fun. It really gave me even more of a healthy respect than I already had for every element of production.
I was going to ask too about displaying fear, because that must, as an actress, I mean, obviously it's your job to play a whole host of emotions, you know, from, you know, sort of anger to distress to love to all the different things you could do. But fear is one where I guess you just have to lose all of your inhibitions and just go for it. Was it quite fun? But also, is it one of the hardest ones to do? Because I guess you just have to really, you kind of have to let go, don't you, completely?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've never really thought about it that way. I'm one of those people that I'll commit to the bit, whatever it is, be it comedic or horror or anything in between, because I found that if you don't, then that's, you know, that it never works fully. But I will say the one sort of trepidation that I had with it is the fact that I'm, you know, everyone's home because it's heavy quarantine and I'm running around my house at 3 a.m. screaming, let me out. I can't open the doors, pounding on my doors and windows. I definitely went to my neighbor earlier in the day and went, hey, so I'm gonna be doing all of this crazy stuff in my apartment later and making all of these noises and probably saying some things that sound rather terrifying and screaming. Don't worry about it. It's fine. So my neighbors think I'm crazy, but they may have already thought that anyway.
Yeah, if you hear a cry for help, don't help me. Yeah.
Don't worry about it. It's fine. Ignore me completely.
One of the things I really liked about the script here was there was lots of kind of pop culture references. I like the way you guys all spoke about kind of different movies and TV shows and stuff. Are you very on top of stuff sort of when it comes to pop culture? Because I'm one of those people where I wait for like TV series to end and then 5 years later I go, oh man, Breaking Bad's really good. And everyone's like, yeah, welcome to 2008. You know, I just wondered how you are with that sort of stuff. I guess your job takes you on a lot of traveling and takes up a lot of your time, but are you able to keep your finger on the pulse?
A little bit. I'm somewhere in the middle. I grew up watching old Hollywood films, so I'm a little bit behind on the times. I sort of missed a few decades because I was back in the 50s at the time. But that being said, you know, quarantine has definitely helped me catch up on some things that I had missed, which I'm very grateful for. But I tend to be somewhere in the middle. You know, I have friends on things, so I try and catch up and watch them and do all of that. But I'm usually a bit behind, but I do my best. But yeah, a lot of those references that you talk about, those have become some of my favorite moments of the film because a lot of them were improvised. There were a few that were in the script because the script was already great as it was, but because we were all shooting so independently and we had the time to sort of play and the freedom to do so, we had so much time to kind of find new things in the moment and to improvise and to kind of go with each other and play that game of tennis, you know, and as we kind of created the film and found its tone as we filmed it.
And you were mentioning obviously that you had to shoot independently of each other, but have you had the chance to kind of have big group meetups since, a sort of rap party beyond the film?
No, we had one on Zoom. We all sat at our houses and put on our party lights and you know, had a couple drinks. But I've seen a few cast members separately. Of course, I've seen Luke and Nick, and Emmy and I met for the first time and went on a few hikes. And you know, I've known Claire and Tim for a long time as well. But it's been a lot of fun to do that. I think that's one reason all of us keep joking about making a sequel, or maybe not joking, but because we all, you know, we had such a great time shooting virtually with each other. We want to at least go on a group vacation or something and just get to spend some time together and if not, make a movie together not virtually.
Yes, but I'm looking at what you have got coming up. I mean, how was it? I just wanted to ask about working with Vanessa Redgrave in Finding You. I mean, that must have been a dream because she's obviously as a Brit as well. She's a kind of national treasure. But what was it like working alongside someone like that?
You know, I didn't actually get to work with her.
Oh no.
My character was not. I know, I was so gutted because I have the utmost respect for her and have, you know, worshipped her work my whole life. But no, we crossed paths entirely. I didn't even get to meet her at all. You know, that's what you get for playing the jealous actress girlfriend, is that you don't get to meet everyone.
But then the one person I'm sure you did get to meet was Charlie Day on El Tonto. That's missing my last question. How was that experience with Charlie? Because obviously, as a directorial debut, everyone's quite intrigued to see how he got on.
I am so excited for people to see El Tonto. I mean, truly, I shot it several years ago now, and I met Charlie back home when I was in Kansas City through this charity event called The Big Slick that's run by Jason Sudeikis and Paul Rudd and all these incredible comedians every year, benefiting the Children's Hospital there. And you meet the best people. And Charlie and I got to chatting, and he went, I'm gonna send you something. And he sent me this script, and it was one of the best scripts I had ever read in my life. It's such a brilliant piece, and I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to ruin it, but I do have to say that Charlie's one of those creatives that just has the most brilliant mind that works in such a unique way. And working with him not only as a screenwriter, but as a director, but as the lead of this film all simultaneously, he's incredible. And one of my favorite directors I've ever worked with, one of the favorite scripts I've ever read. And I'm so excited for people to see this because everyone who worked on it was just so enthused to be there.
Brilliant. Well, I can't wait to see it. And maybe by the time, if there is an untitled horror movie sequel, then I'll be able to meet all of you in person. Who knows? That'd be great, wouldn't it?
I like that idea.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey